Good morning. It's Monday, the 24th of August, a new week. Just a quick one to say thank you to TXFlow for sponsoring the stream. Do consider showing your support by using the link in the description. I do have a joining offer for the jungle as well, so if you sign up, deposit, trade, you get a free month. Let's get into things. I'm not too sure what to talk about today, really. We'll obviously talk about last week and a bit of outlook. So, we traded up very aggressively, broke 65k, traded into our all-time high anchored VWAP and this composite area of resistance, around 79k. Really on the back of Scott Bessent and these treasury buybacks really igniting, another US-led currency debasement trade as far as BTC is concerned. So, we've kind of seen this dynamic with BTC and gold where they're both debasement trades and China is kind of driving the gold upside and the US is kind of driving the BTC upside, which is quite interesting. I think, we obviously traded into a significant area of resistance here, as we've just discussed, all-time high anchored and this area where we've previously been capped. And I think, it's reasonable to assume that we probably spent a bit of time consolidating here, given the extent of this move, and actually given the fact that bond yields aren't really being particularly well controlled, I don't think. So that remains a bit of a headwind for the time being. And I think the other thing I would just say here, is that we are still trading against high time frame momentum. So the 365-day VWAP still pointing firmly down, obviously the all-time high anchored as well. And I think it's going to take some time, as it usually does, right, for us to really turn around on the high time frame. I don't think this is just going to be a sustained move up. Not to say it can't happen, but I think it's unlikely. And I think it's going to take another period of time before this is really ready to trade up in a sustained manner. First thing we need to do is really flip that 365-day and spend some time above it, allowing it to round out and start to point to the upside, showing that buyers are starting to take control on the higher time frame, and we're not there yet. Okay, so this is obviously I think pretty high degree of certainty that this move points to the bottom. It's the first high momentum move to the upside we've seen this bear market. Usually that's how these things end. Happened in 2019, happened in 2022, 2023. We get that death of volatility, and then some momentum ignition to the upside, and that usually is highly suggestive of the bottom, and I think that's probably the case here. So I don't think we're going to trade lower, right? I really don't think that's very likely at all, but I do think that it's going to take some time to get above that 365-day, consolidate above it, and then for momentum to pick up again to the upside. I've seen lots of talk about us speed running a bull market. I just don't think that's the case, right? We've had 3 days of upside or so. It's a big move, but it doesn't mean that we're just going to continue to trade up. So for now, we obviously started to zoom in, right? Let's zoom in. So we obviously started to balance since Friday. Friday was quite a balanced day. Obviously over the weekend you wouldn't really expect much else to happen. So we're starting to build out some value here between 76.5 and 78k. Now I don't know if we're going to sort of probe up immediately or just continue to bracket here for the time being. I think any push into the area around this composite low is a good area to bid. Obviously we put in that low this morning, just having swept this one. I would expect that we would at least come and test the composite value area higher around 78.2 today. Sorry, let me just refresh this stream. I'm surprised it's not working. So I'd expect us to at least probe into the composite value area high at 78.2 today. If we get a rejection there, probably an intraday short. Looking for long, just looking to fade the extremes of this value until it breaks. Essentially, I think there's a good long or a possible long available in this imbalance. We also have this big buying imbalance. We've got this gap here, right, on the 2 hour and the 4 hour charts, somewhere in the 74k area. This low volume node here, I would expect to be an interesting area to look to defend. Around 74k. We've got the developing months value high. The 7-day VWAP is kind of encroaching on that area as well. So we may well have some decent confluence here if price does puke lower. So the main trades I would look to take this week basically are going to be fading the extremes of value here, right? Just looking for rejections at the extremes of value. If we get a probe lower, I think this could be an interesting area to bid for a sort of intra-week swing. So 7-day VWAP, monthly value high, and we've got this buying imbalance here, this low volume node. I think this is an interesting area to look at. Possibly if we do get a probe lower, if we get a decent probe lower, then I think we can at least target the highs. And I think this region above 81K, sorry, this stream keeps fucking freezing. This is not good. Yeah, I think if this area above 81K is, really important resistance. So we've got the developing years value high. We've got May's naked value area high. So an untested monthly level, the 365-day VWAP and this composite overlap. So huge region of confluence and high time frame resistance above sort of 80K basically. So I think, most likely, I think September tends to be, historically has been the worst month in terms of BTC returns. I think that's fair to say. I haven't checked that, but off the top of my head, that is the case. And so I think, if we do probe into this area over the next week or two, this is probably where you want to be looking for a swing short from, potentially for a deeper retracement into at least yearly VWAP and possibly, the 69K area. Where we might test, for example, the 30 and 90-day rolling VWAPs as they start to catch up with price. And I think that's basically my plan, for the next week or two. I don't think we're going to see immediate continuation. I'm looking for us to sort of, let me just turn it off, build out a bit of a range here, and for us to sort of trade or look to fade the extremes above sort of 80K, most ideally, and then potentially looking for a long into sort of October, much lower down. We are rotational within the upper part of the yearly value here. I would like to see us potentially come and test the 69K area, just being that point of control. So yeah, that's basically it. It's quite straightforward, isn't it? That's my sort of thinking anyway. Unless we can, obviously break out here, show continued momentum, and smash through this area, which I don't think is very likely at all. This is a huge area of resistance here. So I'm definitely of the view that we probably top out around this 80 to 82K region, basically, for the near term at least. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't think it makes sense, it makes sense to be sort of leaning bullish because, we obviously are in an uptrend now, but, we are also just forming a range here, I think. And if we look back at 2023, right, something very similar happened here. Let's just scroll all the way back. Right, so we had, real long period of compression after the FTX nuke, and then we got the momentum ignition, but it took so long for the 365-day to start to turn around, and we spent, essentially, 6 to 9 months between sort of March and October, just building out this range, right? So it took such a long time for momentum to really shift on the high time frame. Not to say it has to happen like that again, but we are in a similar situation where we've traded up into that 365-day, which remains in a sort of down, a sloping down attitude, and so it's likely to take some time, as I say, for momentum to shift, right? And we just started to round out before trading up towards the end of October that year. So are we going to see something similar here, where the 365-day sort of does this, perhaps we probe into it here, get some kind of correction, and then maybe trade up and sort of spend some time consolidating into January, perhaps, right? That could happen, and January tends to be a good month in terms of seasonality. Just speculating, but I just don't think we're going to continue to rip higher. That's all. Okay, so that's it for BTC. I didn't trade it perfectly. I sort of took the breakout. I think I took profit mostly around here, around yearly VWAP, and then I was out on the Thursday. Could have traded that leg. Didn't really trade it, so missed out on that. But I caught Sol off the lows more or less. Into this area again, took profit a little too soon. We got that extension into that 3-week value high. I took profit around this composite high. In fact, I've got the setup there. It's, pretty great trade, but missed out on as much again. So not ideal. We got that compression, and then the breakout could have retaken that trade. Massive move into 102, and then the liquidation flush. So I think anticipating continued upside given what we've seen over the past week or so. Everything rallying. It's just a mistake, and I think you should be looking for ranges to form and looking to trade mean reversion for a little bit now, probably into September, where I guess we see a little bit of reduced volatility again, to be honest, and probably at that correction. Hype also managed to catch this from the New York Open flush here. So on the Wednesday, we traded into resistance. We got a little flush on NYO. I took it in the gap. And then we got the Trump news. And we've since sort of seen this, what looks like vertical accumulation, but now just building out some value here. So I think hype remains very strong. It's obviously made new all-time highs and it's trading above those previous all-time highs right now. So I think if there are going to be coins which continues to trade higher, this is probably going to be one of them. So looking to trade around the lower extreme of whatever value we produce here is probably going to be a good thing to do. Maybe we build up value for a few more days. This is just a weekend composite at the moment, so Saturday and Sunday's value. I'd be looking for that to continue to build out over the next few days, and then potentially looking to trade a breakout into wherever this may end up going. But we're in a good strong uptrend. We're not too extended from monthly value actually, which is quite interesting. So provided this range doesn't break down, I think we will continue to trade higher. So this is probably going to be a good play. I think there are some signs that maybe this neobank narrative is kind of alive and well at the moment. Let me just refresh this again. This is really not going particularly brilliantly today. Yeah, the neobank coins are interesting, and Aero also showing decent momentum at the moment. So just got to see where the strength lies. But I think EtherFi is one that we talked about some time ago. I got positioned in this area, and I'm looking for this to continue to trade higher. Coming into a big area of resistance here, may need a bit of consolidation, but overall, I think once this sort of 65 area breaks and we can get above that 365 day, which may take a little time, then we can look to target up to this sort of 150 area, previous year's value high, once we can reclaim previous year's value low, obviously, which is an important level. So that's definitely a coin I'm watching. XPL potentially as well. I think it's been in this range for 7 months. Attempted to break out yesterday and we got a bit of a failure. So I'll be looking for it again just to build out a bit of value here for a day or two. We traded into this imbalance now, but just looking for it to potentially trade sideways. And then once this does break out, then I think this is going to be a really good play, but it may take a bit more time, right? I don't know when this is going to happen. For now, it is range bound until proven otherwise. So once it can flip that 11 cent area, after all of this consolidation, should be a good runner. Very similar to what we saw on Lit, right, which didn't actually spend too long down here. Kind of a more obvious play, really. Absolutely ripped now. I mean, I took profit way too soon on this. Should have just held my bag. But paper handed it. It happens. Sometimes it's much easier to take advantage of these moves just sitting in spot, right? Because you're going to get these liquidation runs. Yes, you can sort of stay trade and scalp around these moves, but just sitting in spot from the lows is just a much easier way of doing things when you're taking advantage of these trending markets or trying to exploit them. So buying here was pretty easy. I think I took a perp long up towards this area. I haven't actually traded it all that much since, but just holding spot. It's now a 4x, so pretty easy stuff. Other coins, I think we've seen massive moves. I think Pump has been the standout performer. Has now retraced half the bear market. I think this is probably going to be an area where it cools off, right? That sort of 50% retracement of the entire leg down. So again, just looking for it to balance for a while and build out a range, potentially see a deeper correction. But we'll see how that develops. It's much too soon to be speculating on where to pick this up for a sort of longer term play again. VVV as well, I think it's done well and looks quite good, but we've just been capped at that point of control for the time being. Wouldn't bet against it here. I think, if you picked up spot in this area on this breakout, for example, above $12, then you're laughing. We are holding above this 3-day composite high for the time being. It needs to break 1850 really to get momentum, but I think beyond that, new all-time highs 24 to 26 are very likely. Zech's obviously done very well as well. I'm in this short from yesterday at the moment, just looking to trade back into our value lows. So again, just not really expecting continuation for the time being. So again, it's a weekend composite, but we did see decent volume over the weekend, particularly on Saturday with those liquidations. So if we're trading back inside Saturday and Sunday's value high, I'm looking for that move down to Saturday and Sunday's val, and then potentially looking for us to again just build out a range here. So I think we could well see decent range bound trading for the next few weeks at least, before perhaps we get a deeper correction and then another move to the upside. We'll just have to see where the strength lies, but as you can tell, I can't really be bothered to do the stream today, so I'm just going to log off, and I'll do another one next week. So catch you then. Cheers for now.